Welcome everyone to the slow food course, working for just food and alimentation policies in Latin America and in the Caribbean. My name is Andrea Amato. I'm the host today for the first part of the session. Following me will be Chiara session speaking. Right now I'm speaking from the Italy headquarters, and to introduce myself pretty shortly, I've been working at the Slow Food office since 2007, primarily coordinating the office called Sur Global. I'd like to thank you for being here and for participating and for being interested in this course. I'd like to thank Caio, Valentina, Francisco, who have planned and coordinated the managing of this course, the counselors, Rita, Alfonso, Esteban, and Giorgio Eveli, for the constant support they've given us and giving us direction and defining the course, and the people dissertating today. As you know, today begins a cycle of meetings for young people who are already active members of the Slow Food Network, and that we want you to participate in this course to become leaders, not just locally, but also regionally and internationally for the future of the organization. The program consists of 5 modules. There's 7 encounters starting today, all the way up to December 15th. Every session is organized in a very similar way. We'll start with 1 hour and 30 minutes of presentations and answer questions. And there will always be a 45-minute group work session. And then we'll go back to the feedback session. In between, we'll give you tasks, which we invite you to complete. People dissertating today are members of our office and the committee of Slow Food International. There will also be people from other organizations which are external to Slow Food, which will be sharing their experiences and their knowledge. This is the Zoom platform, and we've activated a space called Slow Food Connect, which is a safe space, just like a social network, which only Slow Food members and users and participants of this course will be able to use. It's a private space for us to share information, content, with no ads and privacy. A lot more other networks like Facebook. I'll be sending you information as to how to log into the platform shortly. The entire course will be recorded, ongoing recording. All the group works and all the dissertations will be recorded, and it will be shared with whomever couldn't join us today. And we're asking you to share it and pass it on with other members of the community who weren't here today but may be interested. Before starting, I'd like to share some suggestions for coexisting in the course. Punctuality. We kindly ask that you join with a computer or a laptop instead of the mobile phone, because we'll be working in groups with apps like Mural. And in that case, it'll be easier being done with a computer. Please silence your mic when there's other people presenting or talking. And if you have any questions, observations, or suggestions, doubts, you can type them in the chat. And at the end of each session and presentation, we'll be addressing them. Or write down the questions that we can't answer live, and we'll be answering them through other means. Who doesn't have any connection issues, we ask you that you turn on your camera so that we can see each other, please. And Let's remember to be assertive whilst communicating. Let's be concrete, kind, and avoid any type of aggression. Any form of criticism is welcome so long as it's not being. We expect you to participate in all 7 encounters. We hope that we can generate a safe exchange place. We're here for you in case you have any doubts, questions, or feedback throughout the course. In general, because we've organized. Why have we organized this course and what are we expecting from you? As you know, or to those who don't know, which you'll hear in this session, Slow Food is an organization transforming. It's 35 years old, acting to transform within a world that's changing rapidly due to COVID. The ways we work, the ways we produce, the ways we consume food are changing drastically. The last census done in 2007 gave us a new way to realize our activities, which is the community model. This changed our movement a lot. There will be an international congress taking place in Turin, Italy in 2022. All Slow Food International offices are working to decentralize decision-making and to enhance and augment the people participation in decision-making. It's a process that's been ongoing since before the pandemic, but the pandemic accelerated. All strategic decisions are made at the headquarters in Italy. And in all the other continents who hold a Slow Food International office. To accompany this process, which is transforming our association, we thought it'd be necessary to create this course and instruction to instruct proactive subjects that this movement requires. So we do expect an active participation from you, and that you can also share the knowledge and the content from this course with your communities, your networks, and anyone not present here today but wants to be a protagonist of the future of slow food. You've been selected between 400 candidates. You know you've got great responsibility. I hope you understand this expectation and that you, however, live it positively. This is supposed to be a place for growth, dialogue, pleasure, activism, but always with a smile on. So I hope that you feel this, but that you also feel supported by our organization in the development of this course. So I'm going to make a small presentation to provide you with some context as to how slow food is structured, internationally speaking. And then Chiara Davico, my colleague, will be continued to speaking. Following would be Eddie Mukibi, speaking from Uganda, regarding the governance systematic process of the movement. Rita Moyo from Chile, Latin America and the Caribbean representative. We'll have a questions and answers session and then the group work. If everything is clear, I'll take this opportunity to thank the interpreters who are here with us today, dedicating their time for this process of instruction. Their presence is very important, so thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen with you to start my presentation. Yes.
Ok, entonces, en unos 10 minutos,
In about 10 minutes, I would like to talk about where this whole thing started and how it works. Here you can see some pictures, which are a small representation of the history of the movement and where it started. You select 2 photographs. Upper right, upper left corner, that's Rome. Carlo Petrini, the president of the organization, dancing. 1986, McDonald's was trying to settle in Italy, trying to take the franchise to Italy, not just Italy, but also Europe, to standardize food, the way that we produce it, the way we consume it, a way of viewing the world and food. So a group of young people from Bra, from this region in Italy, what we're talking about, all organized cultural activities. So they created a movement that opposed fast food movements.
Apostaron todo hacia la valorización de la diversidad biológica y cultural del territorio de Piemonte, que es donde ellos
viven,
y luego en todo el mundo. Pueden ver el primer logo de Slow Food que se llamaba
the first logo of Slow Food. Archigola was the name of it at the time. You can see a picture at the lower left corner. That's the first International Congress of Slow Food in the 90s. A group of colleagues from that time in Slow Food at the historical headquarters in Embra. From that time in 1986, at the end of the 80s, we've made it all the way to here in this situation, an international movement / organization with 160 countries, 1 million activists who fight for clean, just, and fair alimentation worldwide, over 10,000 projects. Here you can see a gist of what our mission is, what Slow Food represents at the time, and the pillar and the strategically speaking pillars of what Slow Food is, which Kiwi will be talking about. Our mission is that everyone can get good, clean, and fair food. And the way we do this is by being an international movement with 3 main priorities: to defend biological and cultural diversity, to inspire, educate, and mobilize citizens, and to influence private and public policies regarding the production of food. That's why we want to motivate everyone in the network and to enhance our impact. The strategic document of Slow Food, which is guiding us to the next Congress in 2022, is called to show you a little bit of the diversification of our distribution globally. There's about 1,000 in Europe, 460 in Africa. We've developed projects of school-based orchards, which has strengthened the growth of this network. 189 communities in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is a scheme, a very important scheme that explains the international structure of Slow Food, which I define a galaxy of planets. Why a galaxy? because there's not just Slow Food International, meaning the association, but that there's also all kinds of legal entities that work and talk to, to obtain the main three priorities of the movement. Slow food could be considered the mother planet. It's got headquarters in Italy, where I'm speaking from. It abides itself by the Italian laws, although we work internationally. We've got statutes, which is international, and it's got very strong political influence in the international congresses. All the communities and the members of Slow Food in the world are affiliated to Slow Food International. So they compose this mother planet called Slow Food International. In some countries, which you can see the list of these, the upper left corner, where it says national directions, were created in the last 35 years on a national level. Independent national entities called Slow Food plus the country name, but are associated to Slow Food International, and they represent their country in an eternal, constant dialogue with Slow Food International. Everywhere in Europe, the Americas, and Africa, and Asia. There's also a service structure that Slow Food International and the national directions support in the development of their functions. One's called Slow Food Foundation for Biodiversity. It was created in 1999. And what it handles is projects that value biodiversity. Then there's the Teramare Foundation, which was created by Slow Food and some public entities, and it's the organization that coordinates the Teramare event, which, as you know, is done every 2 years in Italy. Other than that, Slow Food Editore, which is a publisher with headquarters in Italy, and it edits books, some in English, but most of them are in Italian. There's a profit entity called Slow Food Promozioni, which organizes all the events in Italy and that signs the collab agreements between Slow Food and private companies. And then there's the UNISC, which is a private university, which Slow Food belongs to their group of funders. This is the galaxy, Slow Food International being the mother planet, many other entities in the world, of course. Slow Food International is the epicenter. Here you can read our international statute. This is the statute that regulates the life and the organization of the movement. It's renewed on every Congress. The last modifications were done in 2017. There's 43 articles that regulate the life of Slow Food International, so it's very important that you as leaders of the movement are familiar with the statute. It's also published at slowfood.com, and it's also part of the content that Caio has shared with you. Here you can see some pictures of the International Congress of Slow Food. As I said, the Congress is the peak of the political life of Slow Food. At the lower left corner, you can see how we work in groups in Chengdu in China in 2017. In other cases, like the next one next year, in Turin in Italy, working with Terra Madre, because we need to unify costs. And that's when we'll realize the Congress. It's the most important time in our political life because that's when the delegates of the association have to make strategic decisions about the movement. about the statutes, about the future ways of organizing ourselves, and about the mechanisms and understanding of functioning of the movement. This is the mechanism of functioning of the organization. This is the governing system. First, we've got the network, communities, and convivia, which is the base and foundation of our organization. Through its delegates to represent the association and the Congress, we sent their delegates to the Congress. Depending on the number of projects and communities, a number of delegates is defined and the organization decides who goes to the Congress. At this point, there's a president who's called Carlo Petrini, also founder of the organization. There's an executive committee, which is composed by 8 people, who also was integrated by Ursula Hudson, who passed away this year, unfortunately. And it's the committee that makes the hard decisions. There's an international council with 40 counselors, which has members and delegates from not just Europe, but also Latin America. Some of them are here with us today. And there's a general secretary who is Paolo Di Croce, who is the chief of international offices of Slow Food. And finally, I'd like you to see how our office works. The international office here in Brian, Italy, has been restructured. Last year, we're working with a geographic focus and theme-oriented focuses inspired by the native indigenous communities and their work. There's not just people like us maintaining a channel of dialogue between the international office and the national offices. There's sub-entities that are provided geographic locations to maintain a channel of dialogue: Global South, Global North, fishermen, native indigenous communities, immigrants, and now it's some specific chains of products. Our office does not work alone, but it has a daily dialogue with the network of communities and with the many offices that have been created in these last years. For example, there's one in Brussels to talk about European advocacy. There's one in New York with which we work a lot in terms of communication, and there's many more in Japan, Germany, Mexico, Uganda, Kenya, Brazil, Italy. Who also rely on us in decision making. I hope this was a clear general gist. We could talk about this for hours, but it was important to give you a minimum of how we work. And now we'll be listening to Chiara, who's going to talk about the biodiversity projects. And for questions, if you want, you can type them in the chat. We'll have time later to answer them at the end of the session. I can also receive questions on Connect to keep answering them. Chiara? Welcome, everybody. I'm going to summarize the international programs, the most important ones, which Slow Food has developed, also the most historical ones that assisted the movement throughout the years. But I'd like to remind you that all this information we're sharing is available on our website, slowfood.com, where there's a brochure in English, Spanish, and Italian. And you'll see that there's more theme areas in which we work. There's, for example, seed-oriented programs, fish, bees. We weren't successful in organizing for this session to visualize all of them. So I invite you to go ahead and check them for yourself, whatever interests you more. You can also use this as an opportunity to make acquaintances.
Ah, sí, ahora creo que la ve.
Sí, ya se mira, Chiara.
Ok.
Yes. The first program, which I'm going to talk about, is the Arc of Taste. Many of you probably know it. It's the base of which we proceed. It's a catalog of quality food, which belong to cultures, history, traditions of other communities all over the world, which are endangered of extinction. These products have the characteristic of being threatened by extinction, which is related to different reasons. Could be climate change, but also in many opportunities, there's the introduction of an industrial agriculture concept, which is very intrusive, the exploiting of soil and the most productive so far, we've got over 5,000 products at the Arc of Taste that come from 150 different countries. The main objective of the Arc of Taste is to preserve this heritage, which is not just food, but it's also economic, social, and cultural, based on the artisan heritage, which you can actually access this catalog online, where all the information is compiled. There's cheese, species, animals, veggies, orchards. If you're into it, you can access our website and see what each country has and what products they've got from the Arc of Taste. We can all participate in the Arc of Taste because the only thing that's necessary is to identify a product that has certain specific characteristics, which we'll be deviling in later. First, we need to identify the existence of these products. Once it's acknowledged and identified, the objective is to denounce that they're in risk of disappearing from the face of the earth, and then invite people who want to make a difference and contribute to do something to safeguard and safekeep these products. There's also countries that have published, such as Brazil or Mexico. Sorry if I'm forgetting one, but surely Peru is another one. There's also a possibility to read published books, which each country has published several books with the product list. They have to be excellent. They've got to be diverse. They've got to have environmentally speaking and geographically speaking and socioeconomically speaking, they have to belong to a certain specific area. It's got to have potential imminent threat of extinction. what's important to underline about the ARC, it's that it's a scientific research project and about widespreading the information so that the masses can access all the information regarding the difficulty that some food are enduring and to promote a movement or an attempt to rescue these products on several different territories, also internationally. Slow Food International does not commercialize these products. Once the product list is identified, which they're very relevant, you can work with communities that produce these food by giving them visibility, not just want to produce catalogs listing these products, but they also want to give them visibility. They're called baluartes. The idea is to support the growers and producers, giving them visibility whenever possible, technical support, instruction, and promoting the product in commercial channels or distribution channels, promoting them in local markets as well. As of today, there's 584 baluartes, but it's an ongoing updating list. There's about 70 countries in the world that has these baluartes. Its characteristics. What's baluarte? It's not that easy. It doesn't just have to be a food. They have to provide tutelage to a traditional practice, or they could also be linked to a traditional fishing practice, which is bound to disappear. But they could also be linked to a rural or ecosystem that's also in danger of extinction. To the left, we see the Sistema Milpa de Chiapas in Mexico, the Licuri in Brazil, and the Gran Chaco Argentina forest fruit. We'll be diving deeper later as to what the baluartes are and how they act in Latin America. The importance of baluarte slow food. They allow us to have an economic impact and environmentally too, socially and culturally. Because as you can see, the idea is that also with some associations, we can augment the production of these foods and then to generate a more profitable income. The environmental impact is due to, we're trying to promote sustainable ways of producing. It's socially relevant because we try to instruct the producers as well. And the cultural impact through the strengthening of the cultural identity of the producers and valuing the soil on which this food is grown and produced, and also where it's originated. Another program that you've surely heard of, I've seen that in this session, amongst the members and participants, there's all kinds of cooks. So maybe this will interest many of you. It's the Slow Food Cook Alliance. It's a network that groups cooks from all over the globe who are committed to internationally buy and utilize products directly from the growers and the producers and use them locally, seasonal, of high quality, always trying to guarantee that the production is good, clean, and fair. There's 22 countries in the world that participate in this alliance, about 1,078 cooks involved in this network. Soil markets, it's an international network of country markets born in 2008. It's an exchange spot where the area of consuming and production blend in. And the idea is to exchange selling at a fair price and that the consumers can buy at a just and fair price as well. There's 66 mercados de la tierra globally, soil markets. Because of the pandemic, there's been an increase of initiatives relating to this concept. They want a different type of consumption, a more transparent one. Slow food travel is an experience, one of the most recent ones we've come up with. It wants to promote a travel experience which looks to educate producers toward the food culture and communities that preserve biodiversity and the territory. The idea is that all actors involved form alliances or strengthen connections. It also promotes the hospitality industry, local communities. It promotes tourism. Public institutions can be involved as well, like town halls, so that we can establish a different tourist model that's more balanced and that rhymes with the territory more. The idea is to influence public policies that are developed in these territories. A new initiative is the Coffee Coalition. I'm bringing this up because there's different participants that may be related to this chain. This is a network where we want to involve all the providers of coffee involved, the brewers, the consumers, aficionados, coffee, technicians. The objective is to promote a production of coffee that's transparent, honest between producers and consumers, and to connect all these actors and agencies of the chain so that the information is shared openly. We call it SSSS, Slow Food Coffee Coalition. The goal is to connect all the actors within the industry. All these programs, just like Andrea said, are very specific, yet they work within the parameters of networks. The main goal is to always promote and develop more and more networks. Cooks, travel, soil markets, coffee coalition, the idea is to keep building and strengthening the networks. For example, slow fish, bees, seeds, keepers. One last thing is that there's a program born in Cuba and Colombia directly because of a need from these two territories. We're also inviting you to promote your ideas and any other initiatives that we here from here in Italy we can't visualize, but for your territories are more important. Our commitment is to organize these activities the best way possible. This, for example, Fincas Low, the Cuban counselor, there's different participants from Cuba and Colombia. So whoever wants to find out more, they can make an acquaintance with them. However, it's a citizen-oriented network which thinks that native, indigenous, and traditional producers become protagonists within production, that they create their own production models, that there's also support from the urban areas and co-producers to conquer sustainable agricultural systems in this territory. The objective is to launch a network that has a local reach, but also regional and international, to retrieve, defend, and strengthen the traditional country and indigenous fincas, to ensure sovereignty and safety within the Latin American continent. One last aspect which characterizes slow food are the international events and exchange spaces in different countries and within different parameters and different times of the year. We do these events that allow for more connecting within the international community. For example, Salone del Gusto in Italia, in Teramare, which aims to reunite as many cooks, as many producers, as many actors as possible from all regions of the world to continue building a wide dialogue space so that they can also sell their products. There's also Slow Fish, which is purely dedicated to fish in Italy, but there's always participation from international agents and people. We just had it in Bra in Italy, dedicated to cheese. I'd like to introduce 3 new events that were done last year at Teramare Brazil, which was a space for encounters in Brazil, in the Brazilian network, the encounter of indigenous Teramare in Mexico, which was it was the Native Indigenous Network in Latin America, done in Mexico, and then an encounter of young agriculturists called CISAI. Last year was the 2nd edition, and it took place in Peru. And last year, it reunited and gathered more and more participants. It's a product of the local community that really wanted to organize this event with these characteristics, and they succeeded at it. However, throughout these sessions of this course, we'll be diving a lot deeper in some elements that will also allow you to come up with events in your own countries, to have the strength and courage to make them come true. And that'll be all. Thank you so much. Very important what you just presented. And we'll keep going with our presentations. This is Eddie Mukibi from Uganda, President of Slow Food Uganda. Thank you, Eddie, for being here with us.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you.
Andrea. Gracias a todos.
Thank you, everyone who has made it to this meeting. It's very important.
A todos los que han hecho posible esta reunión, porque creo que es muy importante.
For the future of slow food, and
para el futuro de Slow Food, y les invito a todos a que me escuchen atentamente.
As Slow Food is envisioning being
ya que el Slow Food ha intentado orientarse hacia un movimiento de impacto,
without having a very strategic vision through specific but broad objectives, which are also important to move throughout the whole network and also throughout all our structures. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So Slow Food being an impact-oriented movement, one of the largest and the biggest food movements, it's important to have a clear strategic vision. This doesn't mean to say that all the work which we have been doing in the past has not been driven by a vision. We have been having a vision and we still have a vision, but it's very important to put this vision in a more clear way and a more focused way that the whole network will clearly understand what we want to, how we want to change the food system. So we need to focus on all our efforts, also all the projects which Chiara has talked about, into these broad but specific but broad pillars of slow food. Andrea talked about the three main pillars of slow food, which include preservation of biological and cultural diversity. This strategic objective looks at all the activities which we do that aim at preserving biological and cultural diversity from different levels, both at the grassroots network projects which we have, the network activities which we have, to other global projects like the Arc of Taste. And the essence of this is to support and promote the people who preserve biodiversity, working with them and also promoting them and supporting them in different ways, but also all the work which we do concerning research and cataloging of the heritage of our biological diversity, right from the rural communities to what the chefs contribute to the, or cooks contribute to the Arc of Taste, and also the research which is being done in the universities that contribute to preservation of biodiversity through putting this knowledge together. For example, the project by the University of Gastronomic Sciences to research and put together Arc of Taste books, all fall within this strategic objective of slow food. So these objectives don't mean something completely new, but they are very, very clear ways of us putting together our work into simple, understandable forms. Also, when we talk about defending biological and cultural diversity, also means creating more opportunities for dialogue and exchange between those who work along the food value chain, from the fields to handling and also to the table. We all need, and to the consumers. All the knowledge on biodiversity and also our different food cultures are captured in this strategic objective. Another strategic objective, which we are going to, which will is defining the future of slow food beyond the Congress or next year's Congress, is educate, inspire, and mobilize citizens to understand better issues relating to the food system. In this case, we aim at achieving impact under the strategic objective. Depends on developing communication materials, launch campaigns, and increase awareness about the food system to change people's behavior. All the work which we do, like the communication materials we develop on both printed and also electronic, and the campaigns which we do to educate people, to create awareness, to sensitize people about the food system, about our activities, they all fall within this strategic objective. Then also the different trainings which we do related to our leaders, related to the gardens, the trainings which we do for the cooks in different areas, all the training activities that aim at sharing knowledge come directly within this strategic objective. In many cases, we do a lot of things, a lot of training at the community level, a lot of learning activities in different areas. And we wonder if we are really contributing to the change that slow food envisions. But the truth is, all the training activities we do have a very big impact on all the education activities, all the training. All these have a very big impact on the change we want to achieve together as the global slow food movement. Another important strategic objective that defines the future of slow food beyond the Congress that will happen next year in Turin is influencing policies in the public and private sectors. There are quite a lot of policies out there which are every day come up, and regulations which affect our work, which affect our daily activities as members of Slow Food, as the grassroots Slow Food network. We don't want to keep a blind eye on these policies. We want to identify these policies and see how we can influence and change the negative policies such that they recognize the great job our communities do, the great work which we do on a daily basis, and also to support those good policies which aim at preserving biodiversity and also which envision the world of food in the same way that slow food envisions it. So we do not only target, we should not only target the public policies or the public sector, but also the private sector. So many companies are doing things which affect negatively the food system, while others are doing things which are positively affecting the food system. The point here is to identify these different programs and policies and identify which ones to change. All the work which we do to change these policies, all the work which we do to talk to these companies to change the way they do things, falls within this strategic objective, one of the main pillars on which the future of slow food is being built. In this case, it also includes creating alliances with other organizations with which we share the same values, creating alliances with companies that are true to their values and have similar values like slow food, but also creating alliances with other individuals who might not be within the slow food network, but their work is of an added value to the change we want to make as slow food. Raising citizens' voices. Many injustices are happening everywhere in the world, especially in the global south, including land grabbing, unrealistic seeds in the name of GMOs and other conventionally bred seeds. All the work we do to change and overturn these policies, these programs, these regulations are within the vision of slow food, and they fall within this strategic objective and vision of slow food. these are all put together, like what Andrea said. These strategic objectives and the pillars are put together in a document called the Call to Action. This is the Congress document, which we are going to talk about in the Congress come 2020 in Turin. And this Congress is going to be very important because as we are going to see, Congress is a very important place. It's a very important decision-making moment where the future of slow food is defined, at least for the next 5 years or beyond. So Congress 2020 in Turin, the main document which will be discussed and which will be our main Congress document is this call to action that clearly defines and describes these strategic pillars as the vision that describes the future of slow food beyond 2022. I will these strategic objectives do not dictate or define new work, new activities, or new projects, and it doesn't put pressure on us, on the network, to create new things. They actually bring together all our efforts in a more focused direction. They bring all our activities, all our projects, all the projects which Chiara mentioned, they all fall within these 3 strategic objectives. And it's a very, very easy way for us to explain to the outsiders who we are and what we stand for and what we aim to achieve and how we want to make the impact in the food system, how we want to change the food system is through these 3 strategic directions of slow food. When it comes to governance structures of slow food, Andrea tried to highlight some of the governance structures, but I will go a little bit into the details. When we talk about the Congress, like I've been talking about the Congress 2022 in Turin with this strategic document, one may want to understand how the Congress works. I will briefly, in the interest of time, go through how we are organized as slow food, our leadership structures, and how decisions are made. Like Andrea said, the Congress is the most important level of decision making in the whole life of slow food. This is a point where we have communities, convivia, counselors, and all people involved in the slow food movement come together to define the future of slow food, to define which policies, which direction we need to take. So the Congress has a very important role of discussing, defining, and approving the policies and programs, at least for the next 5 years, because the Congress normally takes place every after 5 years. Another important aspect of the Congress is sharing our impact report or social report and see how and track our progress as Slow Food International, as Slow Food Movement. Are we moving into the right direction? Are we making the impact which we need to make? Are we moving into the right footsteps? So this is a moment of reflection. The Congress is a moment of reflection where we check ourselves, we share the news in the social report, as well as other key reports which we need to evaluate ourselves if we are moving into the right direction. Another important role of the Congress is to elect administrative bodies or governing bodies of slow food, like the president, the council, the executive committee, and other governing or administrative bodies as explained in the statute which Andrea showed us, the one which has 42 articles. The Congress also has an important role of electing the Board of Statutory Auditors and the Board of Appeals. These are also part of the governance structures, which are pretty important in the management and running of the governance of slow food as an international movement. In any case, there are changes in the statute, in the international statute. The Congress also is charged with improving and approving any changes or improving the statute, including modification of the details like the headquarters and other details which may be required to change in the statute. This is the role of the board to approve the changes in the role of the Congress to approve the changes in our statutory, in our international statute. The Congress can be convened by the Executive Committee in any part of the world. For example, in 2007, there was a Congress in Puebla in Mexico. Another Congress in 2012 was in Turin. 2017, it was in Chengdu. 2022, it's going to be in Turin again. So you can see how the Congress is not organized in only in one specific part of the world, one specific region, but it rotates from different parts of the world to other parts of the world, depending on many factors. So this is, the Congress is very important in the life of slow food, and it's the one most important level of decision making. After the Congress, like I said, the Council is also elected is elected at the International Congress. And this Council, it's a body of around 40 members from all around the world. And the Council is the main role of the International Council is to direct policies, and it has a general political representative of the association of slow food. So it's elected by the Congress according to the procedures defined in the regulations in the statute. And the Council, like I said, it's a policy-making body, but it also has a lot of other functions, like applying the decisions made by the Congress, because after the Congress, there are many decisions which are made, but then we need a body to follow up and the implementation of these decisions, and also defining the association strategies and choices. Also, the Council can improve the association's work program, and also approving the final annual balance sheet prepared by the Executive Committee, as well as approving the annual social report and approving the Congress regulations, among others. So if we are to have the Congress in 2022, it means the Congress regulations are prepared, and then there is an international council before the Congress that approves the Congress regulations before the Congress happens. And the council is convened at least once a year. We normally have the International Council in June of every year, and it can be face-to-face, and also it can be physical, but also the council can be conducted virtually via telephone or internet-based communication platforms. For example, in 2020 and 2021, the council meetings were totally virtual due to the pandemic restrictions on travel and also keeping everyone healthy. And this is totally allowed by the international statute. I will leave the council and explain a little bit on the executive committee. Like Andrea showed in one of the slides, one of the governing bodies or administrative bodies of Slow Food International is the executive committee. This is the operational body that implements the decisions of the council. So once the council takes decisions and approves some policies or directs on policies or recommends policies, it's the International Executive Committee that is responsible for putting and implementing the decisions of the council. And some of the powers of the council are delegated to the executive committee to manage some of the decisions. So the executive committee currently, the current executive committee was elected in 2017 during the Congress in Chengdu. And the next executive committee will be elected in the next International Congress in Turin next year. And the members are selected and voted from different geographical regions. For example, the current executive committee has members from Africa, Uganda, from Latin America, specifically from Brazil, from United States, from Italy, and also from China. So this is how the executive committee is organized, and it will remain in office for the time between the two international Congress gatherings.
Eddie, I'm
yes.
sorry, I have to ask to go towards conclusions, so
yes,
we can be on time.
Now,
thanks a lot.
I'm now concluding with a few of the roles of the executive committee and how we work. Mostly the president convenes the committee and working together with the general secretary, and then we can meet physically if possible, but also it's allowed to meet virtually to see the ordinary and extraordinary administration of the association, programming and evaluating the administrative structures of the association, as well as other activities, and also taking some urgent decisions within the slow food movement. So this is how slow food is organized. And also the Congress, 2022 Congress is very important because this is a moment where we are going to redefine the future of slow food and also draw a new strategic vision or a strategic direction for the movement. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Eddie. Thanks a lot. Ha sido muy inspirador escucharte.
It's been such an inspirational moment.
Y entonces vamos a dar la palabra
Now I'm going
a Rita
to
Moya.
pass the floor to Rita Moya. She's a counselor of Slow Food, and she will talk about the experience of the work in the counselors in Latin America and the Caribbean region, adapting the dialogue with the presentation of Eddie. Thank you so much, Eddie, and thank you so much, Rita. The floor is yours. Thank you, Andrea. Do I have to share my screen, or are you going to do that? If you want to share the screen, I don't know if I can do that. If you can do it, that would be great. I have the breakout rooms ready, so I don't know if I'm able to do it still. If you can share it, it would be perfect. Can you see it? Yes, perfect. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Eddie, and all the people participating here today with us, with all the young leaders of Latin America. I have experience from more than 20 years, I would say. Before starting with my presentation, I would like to explain my point of view when I'm talking about the Caribbean and Latin America governance. We're obviously talking about international governance, and we have to take into account all the objectives and actions that we need to develop all the Latin America slow food process. The second aspect would be all the structures and how to balance these structures within the movement in order to carry out all the actions and objectives within Latin America, but also in a conversation with other regions. I'm going to focus myself in all the work we've been doing during the last 7-8 years. And this is the first point, objectives and actions, because I think that in terms of structure, we've not made a lot of progress, I have to admit. First of all, the grassroots structure exists in Latin America. We have the communities that all of you are representing. And then in some occasions, we have some national slow food associations, such as Chile and Brazil, or informal coordinations that also has a role in this governance. And then we have the International Council that Eddie was talking about. And we have 5 representatives, one from Mexico, one from Cuba and the Caribbean, another from the Colombia, Venezuela region. Then we have Cono Sur, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and then we have Brazil. And here we face the main challenge. How are we going to build the objectives and the common actions as Latin America slow food movement? And we have to take into account our diversity. Latin America is a very culturally, biologically, and geographically diverse region. But I think that despite that, we share a perspective, a common perspective, an identity one. And it has to do with our development as a Latin American history. We come from ancestral peoples that were conquered in a very violent way. In that way, we could establish a capitalist model of developing structures, and we deepened in all our domination problems when it comes to land. Then we had a trade and market regulation as well. And now we are facing money domination. And nowadays we have a domination of our natural resources. So basically this model has some details that have to do with these colonial processes. It has affected our land, our waters, our seas, our natural resources, and our cultures as well. It has promoted all the inequalities within our society as well. And I think that we can find a common base here because all of us, all of the people in Latin America are being affected nowadays by this new liberal model. In 2015, the councillors from the regions, from these 5 territories I was mentioning before, we established the first manifesto of the Latin American network. At the beginning, it was called South American, but then we changed it to Latin America. And we had the intention of make a first effort of evaluating our problems in all these three areas: water, land, and culture. And we had a dialogue with all the national coordinators and counselors, and then the coordinators with the people. So it was like a bilateral dialogue. And then we drafted 4 documents analyzing the problems and the actions we could develop. These documents are based on water, land, seeds, and culture. And then we have the manifesto I was talking about. I'm not going to enter into detail, but I really invite you to talk to your coordinators and ask for being able to see these documents. But which was the most important thing in this final development? We could develop a first element within the strategic objectives to contribute the international movement. And I would summarize this with just a sentence: water, land, seeds, and culture, free and living with us. And we have a very productive identity. So if we don't have the access to water and access, if we don't have the seeds, the right to seeds, and if we just have polluted waters and malnutrition, GMOs, all this scenario is not allowing us to generate all the good food, fair and clean food. And this is the first invitation I would like to draft in all the young leaders of our territories, and is that they should help the communities not to just take into account the specific objective, but within all the general context from an international point of view. How this model is affecting our lands, water, seeds, and culture. I'm just going to give you an example, and I'm sorry if I'm just talking about Chile, but I'm from there. There's a type of honey which is called the madrón honey. The madrón is one of our endemic species, and we just have 2 places in the whole country where we can find this tree. They are very small territories, but they are all surrounded by monocultures installed by some agro-industrial politics within this model that promotes growth. And it happens that in 15 years' time, we're not gonna have these trees anymore because it's gonna be polluted. So what I would like to say is that we have to develop actions, objectives to protect and preserve this type of honey. If we do not place political and strategic objectives at a territorial or even global vision, we're not going to save this kind of products. And the second invitation, so the first one was, how can we do some advocacy actions within our territories? And the second one is that do not stand on your own. Just create alliances and cooperate with some other movements, with some other stakeholders, with peasants, with indigenous peoples, with environmentalists, with feminists. So this was the first milestone in 2015, 2018. And this year we celebrated the second milestone, the regional encounters. They were placed in Teramare, but I think that this year, thanks to digitalization, we could enjoy a more democratic process, more autonomous process, and we could enjoy a much fruitful dialogue. Within the three pillars, biodiversity, education, and advocacy, we updated the problems and we developed some objectives and actions. This was developed for each and every territory, one from Mexico, one from the Andes, one from Conosur, one from Brazil. And then we drafted a Latin America document. And once again, I invite you all to ask, or I don't know who you should reach, I'm not sure, but you should ask for these documents because they are quite valuable. And this will be our main contribution to our strategic vision developed in our Congress in 2022 in Turin. When it comes to problems, we faced some similar problems from 2015 till 2021. The only one which was different was that nowadays Latin America is facing a very inequality political situation, and it's the result of our crisis, of this model which is not working at all. And with the pandemic, we could see that it was a failure. And then we have the climate change effect. I think our communities are really feeling nowadays the climate change. It's not a narrative anymore. When it comes to the contributions to this international strategy, we have taken into account the three objectives, the good, the clean, and the fair. When it comes to the good, we are contributing and reaching this food sovereignty principle. And here we are being engaged with the peasant and indigenous movements because they are the ones who have promoted the principle of food sovereignty. When it comes to the clean, we have the fight against water pollution, soil pollution, and the GMOs. And when it comes to the fair, we have to guarantee an access to water, land, and sheets. And we added another element, a very interesting one, which is access to food, because unfortunately, good, clean, and fair food is only accessible to some elites. People just have access to industrial companies and supermarkets, and they just have access to cheap products. When it comes to actions, I invite you to read this document and to talk about the actions in general. I would just have to remark some important elements. The first one would be when it comes to biodiversity. I'm going to give the example of Finca Slow. It is part of a Latin American identity from Cuba and Colombia, and it reflects the reality we are living. And we can refer to them to finca, to exploitation, to farm, but this is the productive identity or our productive unity through history. And here is where our identity rises. Here we have our resilient systems, our autonomous systems. They are also spaces to keep traditional cultures of indigenous peoples. And what I want to remark is that it's very interesting to rescue these actions within our identity and not only gather international movement actions. When it comes to education, we strongly saw the need of creating awareness in terms of agroecology and food sovereignty. It was very reinforced and promoted due to the pandemic. The big agro-industrial companies couldn't feed the people. We all got back to food sovereignty systems. And when it comes to advocacy, we have some big actions such as, and we all have to engage ourselves, and we have to promote the amount of our communities, the amount of people, I mean. And this is a political strategy. If we're not a lot of people, we're not going to be that strong. That's a very obvious thing. But we do not just have to be bigger as a slow food. And I really insist we have to create alliances with some other organizations and movements. And this is a young leader's task. To conclude, I just cannot ignore the current topics, which is climate change and the Food Systems Summit. We had a report from the government group of experts from the United Nations, and they said that the climate change was generalized and promoted. It has been intensified. It's growing so rapidly, even more than expected. And we realized that our governments are not really worried about this problem, about climate change. And we have celebrated a summit today, yesterday, and tomorrow. We are celebrating a food systems summit where just the United Nations has invited company people and business people, and they have just ignored all the peasant and indigenous people organizations. And this makes us think that the system is going to be deepened and consolidated in an industrial point of view. And we all know that the industrial companies have a 30% repercussion in terms of pollution. And we have to be introduced in these global processes in a better way, not only in climate change, but also within food systems. And we need to build Latin American structures that have not to be the traditional ones. They can be some horizontal structures in terms of contents in some kind of areas. And they will allow us to build from our identity and to contribute to the movement. And that way we could mobilize people from a solidarity point of view. Because we are suffering all the damage in our waters, lands, seas, and culture. To conclude, I would like to share this sentence, which I really like. and it's on the last document of the regional encounters. I'm going to read it out loud because it's a quote. And the Latin American network proposes to promote a change in our food systems from a food sovereignty point of view. So here we have an alliance with these movements. To do so, we need to promote family agriculture, peasant agriculture with women, with endemic peoples, that the water has to be free without GMOs. And of course that our food culture and the people's identity persists over time against the dominant model of agro-industrial food. This was what I wanted to express, and I really thank you. Thank you, Rita. It's been very interesting because you really showed how we have been working not only at a grassroots level, but only we have been building an international point of view with the dynamics. And with activities based on our communities. From that point, we are acting in favor of consumers and producers. So thank you so much. We don't really have a lot of time. We're not fulfilling our program. We had some questions and answers session. We don't want to cancel it, but maybe we can just have 3-4 questions, no more, in order to clarify some doubt on, or if you want to explain something, do some comments, you can use the chat. In terms of timing, we could answer to 3 or 4 answers. I saw a question about collaboration.
¿Existe algún tipo de diálogo o hermanamiento entre Slow Food y otros movimientos como la Vía Campesina?
Yeah. They asked if there is some kind of partnership with Slow Food and Via Campesina. Generally, yes, we're working with some other organizations. We think it's very important to promote these alliances, and that's why representatives of other organizations are participating in the next sessions. We have a lot of methods of collaboration. We can just send a collaboration letter with clear intentions, with shared values. With these organizations, we can cooperate, creating or acquiring some other platforms. Rita has talked about the Food Systems Summit.
Una serie, de una red de organizaciones.
Is taking part in this network of the Contra Summit. We signed one document 1 year ago, and we are organizing activities nowadays, but we are part of some other organizations and associations in terms of consumers' health. In Europe, we are participating in conventions, in groups, in order to advocate beekeeping, for example. We have been the first promoters in civil society mechanisms against GMOs. So yeah, cooperation is one of our key values we really want to promote. I'm reading in the chat if we have any other questions. Luisa Vélez, thank you so much. Rita, we really have to promote this participative process in order to promote the good, clean, and fair food. How could we promote the alliance between cooks? I have a lot of colleagues that do not really understand the movement. Could you please recommend something in the case of Honduras. Chiara, do you want to answer this question? Or I don't know if some other colleague wants to intervene. I don't know. When it comes to Cooks Alliances. Yeah, I can do it. Go on, Esteban. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all such as a family within Slow Food. I think we are all brothers and sisters. We are all sharing our interests, so I'm so happy for being here. So when it comes to the alliances of cooks, I think it's a very important topic because I think that cooks are trying to look for identity that allows our roots and to transmit our histories. In Ecuador and some other countries, we are trying to create links, to create cooperation with agricultural workers. And we have some documents that help in this objective. So beyond promoting us such as a group, what we are trying to do is to focus ourselves in achieve this identity and to talk about food sovereignty and food security. We have had a very good results. I don't know, Saul, if you need more information, you can write me via email, for example. Thank you, Esteban. That's perfect.